Part 1. The things we don't see. Ma had always believed her life was built on trust. She lived in a quiet suburb of Seattle, in a home she and her husband Mark had worked hard to build together. Their life wasn't fancy, but it was steady, filled with small joys like coffee in the mornings, weekend hikes, and laughter shared over late-night movies. Mark was kind, grounded, and sometimes a little too focused on work, but Emma loved him for his calm nature. And then there was Lily, Emma's best friend since college, the kind of friend who knew every chapter of her life. Lily had been there when Emma met Mark. She had been her bridesmaid, her confidant, her other half in friendship. She came over often, bringing her usual energy, funny, warm, and full of stories. For years, it was a friendship that felt like family. But slowly, something shifted. Small enough that most people wouldn't notice, but Emma did. It began with glances that lasted a second too long, with laughter that felt a bit too soft when Mark was around. Lily had always been friendly with him, but now there was something else. Something subtle, something quiet. Emma tried to ignore it at first. She told herself she was imagining things, that Lily was just being her usual lively self, that Mark was simply polite. But then small things started to pile up. Lily began showing up unannounced, usually when Mark was home. Sometimes she'd bring his favorite snacks or ask for his help with her car, even though Emma knew she could easily go to a mechanic. And when they talked, Emma started to feel invisible, like she was watching two people connect in a language she no longer understood. One evening, while cooking dinner, Emma overheard their laughter in the living room. It was light, genuine, and yet it stung. She walked in and found Lily sitting on the edge of the couch, leaning in close as Mark told a story from work. When they noticed her, both smiled too naturally, too comfortably. Emma smiled back, pretending nothing was wrong, but her heart felt strangely heavy. That night, as she lay beside Mark, she stared at the ceiling and wondered if friendship could slowly turn into something dangerous without anyone realizing it. Days turned into weeks, and Emma's instincts grew sharper. She started noticing how often Mark mentioned Lily. Lily told me about this new movie, or Lily said I should try that coffee place. He didn't mean harm. He was just sharing. But to Emma, every mention felt like a quiet reminder that something was shifting beneath the surface. It wasn't jealousy. At least, not at first. It was confusion. She trusted both of them. She wanted to trust them. But something deep inside her whispered that she was being left out of her own story. One afternoon, Emma invited Lily for coffee, hoping to clear her head and talk like old times. She watched her friend laugh, her eyes glowing when she mentioned Mark. "He's such a good listener," Lily said casually. "You're lucky, Em. Men like him are rare." The words were innocent, but the tone made Emma's stomach tighten. When Lily left, Emma sat alone, staring at the empty chair. She couldn't tell if she was overthinking or if she was finally seeing the truth. That night, while scrolling through her phone, Emma noticed something small but unusual. Mark had left his phone on the nightstand. A message notification lit up the screen, Lily's name. Her heart skipped. She didn't want to look, but curiosity and fear pushed her hand forward. It wasn't a long message, just a few words, but it hit her like a cold wave. "Can't stop thinking about what you said earlier." Her chest tightened. What had he said? Why was Lily texting him like that? Emma locked the phone quickly, her hands trembling. She sat there for a long time, the room quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. When Mark came out of the shower, she didn't mention it. She couldn't. She just looked at him, trying to read the man she thought she knew so well. He smiled, kissed her goodnight, and fell asleep easily. But Emma didn't close her eyes once that night. The next morning, the world looked the same, but everything felt different. She noticed how Mark checked his phone before leaving for work. She noticed how Lily didn't text her anymore, only him. Emma's heart ached in silence. She wanted to confront them both, but she was afraid. Afraid that if she said the words out loud, they would become real. She told herself maybe it was just friendship. Maybe they just connected as people. After all, Lily had always been part of their lives. But deep down, Emma knew she was losing something. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, like water slipping through her fingers. One rainy evening, She sat by the window, watching droplets race down the glass. Her phone buzzed, another message from Lily, meant for Mark, but somehow sent to her by mistake. It read, "I wish things were different." Emma froze. The message was short, almost harmless, but it said everything. She realized that love doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes it hides in laughter, in shared jokes, in the spaces where trust once lived. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just sat there, heart pounding, watching the rain blur the world outside. For the first time in her life, Emma felt something inside her shift. A quiet acceptance that the story she thought she was living might not be hers anymore. When Mark came home later that night, wet from the rain, he smiled at her like nothing was wrong. She smiled back, pretending to believe it. But deep down, Emma knew the things we don't see often hurt the most. That night, she opened her journal for the first time in months. She wrote one line and closed it again. Something is ending, and I don't know if I can stop it. The next day, she decided to find out the truth. Not with anger, not with shouting, but with quiet strength. She needed to know what her heart had been whispering all along. And deep inside, she feared that once she knew, there would be no turning back. End of part 1. Part 2, The Quiet Truth. The next morning, Emma woke up early. The world outside was gray, the kind of morning that feels heavy even before it begins. She made coffee for herself and Mark, though she barely touched hers. Her thoughts were louder than the silence in the kitchen. She wanted to ask him about the message, about Lily, about everything, but the words got stuck in her throat. She watched him scroll through his phone, smile faintly, tuck it away when he saw her looking. That small gesture told her more than any confession could. Something between them had changed. When Mark left for work, Emma sat at the table staring at her reflection in the dark coffee. Her heart wasn't angry, just tired. She felt like she had been living inside a dream that was beginning to fade. After hours of sitting there, she finally stood, picked up her phone, called Lily. Her voice shook slightly when she said, "Can you come over tonight? I think we need to talk." Lily hesitated but agreed. The hours before that meeting felt endless. Emma cleaned the house, rearranged the cushions, anything to distract herself. When Mark came home, she asked him calmly, "Can we talk after dinner?" He looked uneasy, but nodded. Dinner was quiet, every sound, the clink of plates, hum of the fridge seemed louder than usual. After they ate, Emma finally spoke. "Mark," she said, "I saw the message." He froze. His fork slipped from his hand. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, softly, "It's not what you think." Emma nodded slowly. "Then tell me what it is." He sighed, ran his hand through his hair, and leaned back in his chair. "Lily and we've just been talking. That's all." When things between us felt distant, she listened. She understood. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but sometimes I just needed someone to talk to." His words were careful, almost rehearsed. Emma listened quietly, her eyes fixed on him. "So you talk to her more than me now?" she asked. Mark looked down. "I guess I did." The room fell silent. No shouting, no tears, just a thick, heavy quiet that carried every unspoken emotion. Emma realized it wasn't betrayal in the traditional sense. It was something softer, but just as painful. Emotional distance. Connection misplaced. She asked the one question she didn't want to know the answer to. "Do you love her?" He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked slightly. "I don't know. I didn't plan any of this. But when I talk to her, it feels easy." Emma felt her chest tighten, but she kept her voice calm. "And with me." He looked up, guilt filling his eyes. "It feels hard sometimes. We used to talk about everything, but now it feels like we just go through the motions." Emma nodded, trying to stay steady even as her heart broke quietly inside her. "I see," she said softly. "I guess we both stopped trying, didn't we?" Mark reached for her hand, but she gently pulled away. "I need time," she whispered. That evening, after Mark went to bed, Emma sat alone in the living room, lights dimmed. She replayed their conversation over and over. She realized this wasn't about just one message or one moment. It was about all the moments they had lost without noticing. She wasn't angry at Lily anymore. She wasn't even angry at Mark. She was just sad that their love had quietly turned into something that lived more in memory than reality. Later that night, there was a knock at the door. Lily stood there, eyes red, holding her purse tightly. Emma stepped aside and let her in. They sat down in the same room where they had shared so many laughs before. But now the air between them was heavy and uncertain. Lily spoke first. "Emma, I didn't mean for this to happen." Her voice trembled. "It just Lily did. I don't even know when it started. I admired Mark. I cared about him. And when you two had problems, I thought I was helping." Emma stared at her friend, her heart aching with both pain and pity. "You should have talked to me," she said quietly. "I would have understood. I trusted you." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. "I know, I've hated myself for this. I tried to stay away, but he would call sometimes, and I—" She stopped mid-sentence, shaking her head. "I don't expect you to forgive me." Emma looked at her, really looked at her, and for a brief moment, she saw the girl she'd once laughed with, cried with, dreamed with. This wasn't the friend who set out to betray her. This was someone who got lost in feelings she didn't know how to control. "I forgive you," Emma said quietly. Lily looked shocked. "Not because it's easy," Emma continued, "but because holding on to anger will only hurt me more. I just need to decide what comes next." They sat in silence for a long time. The rain started outside again, tapping gently on the windows. Finally, Emma stood up. "I think he loves you," she said softly. "And maybe you love him too. I can't fight that." Lily's lips parted, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Emma, I don't want to take him from you." Emma shook her head. "You didn't take him. He left, slowly. I just didn't see it happening." The truth was painful, but it was also freeing. For the first time, Emma felt clarity. She realized love wasn't about possession. It was about connection, and sometimes that connection shifts in ways no one can predict. That night, when Lily left, Emma sat on the couch, watching the door close. She didn't cry. She just breathed deep, shaky breaths and allowed herself to feel everything. When Mark came into the room, she looked at him with calm eyes. "I talked to Lily," she said. He looked anxious. "What did she say?" "That she loves you." Mark's face fell. He opened his mouth to speak, but Emma stopped him gently. "And I told her that maybe she's the one you need now." He stared at her, confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that sometimes love changes." Emma replied softly. "And when it does, we have to decide whether to hold it tightly or let it go peacefully. I'm choosing peace." Mark's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," she said. "But sometimes we hurt people even when we don't mean to." That night they didn't fight. They didn't argue. They just sat quietly in the living room, both understanding that their marriage was no longer the same as the clock ticked toward midnight. Emma felt strangely calm. The truth had finally come out, and though it hurt deeply, it also lifted a weight from her chest. She didn't know what the future held, only that it would be different. Before going to bed, she whispered to herself, "Maybe this is the ending I needed to find myself again." And for the first time in months, she slept without tears. End of part 2. Part 3, Letting Go Gracefully. The morning after their quiet conversation, Emma woke to a house that no longer felt like home. Mark had already left for work, and the silence was heavy, almost echoing. Every corner of the house held memories, laughter, birthdays, and long talks that once felt endless. Now, those same memories only made her chest ache. She knew what had to be done. Their marriage wasn't broken by cruelty or betrayal, but by distance and silence that had slowly taken root between them that week. Emma asked Mark to meet her at the small cafe where they had gone on their first date years ago. When he arrived, he looked nervous but hopeful. She smiled softly and said, "Mark, I think it's time we stop pretending we can fix something that's already gone." He looked down, his jaw tightening. "You really want to end this?" he asked quietly. Emma nodded. I don't want to end it in anger. I just think we've both changed, and maybe it's time we let each other go peacefully." Mark didn't argue. He didn't beg her to stay. Maybe he had been expecting it too. There was sadness in his eyes, but also a strange relief. They talked for hours, not about blame or mistakes, but about how they had grown apart. Emma told him that she wanted him to be honest about what he felt for Lily. Mark hesitated, then admitted, "I think I care about her, but I still care about you too." Emma smiled sadly. "That's the thing about love," she said. "Sometimes it doesn't vanish, it just changes direction." A week later, Mark began packing his things. The day he moved out was calm and quiet. Emma helped him fold clothes, wrap dishes, and organize boxes. Every now and then, they'd share a soft memory, a small laugh. A reminder that what they once had was real and beautiful, even if it didn't last. When everything was ready, Mark stood by the door and looked at her. "You're sure about this?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, go live your truth. That's all I ever wanted for you." He hugged her gently, the kind of hug that feels final. Then he left, and the door clicked shut behind him. Emma stood there for a long time, staring at the space he once filled. The quiet hurt, but it also brought peace. For the first time in months, she didn't feel trapped between fear and doubt. She felt free. In the following days, people around her reacted differently. Some were shocked, others sympathetic. Her mother called and cried over the phone, asking why she let her husband go. Her coworkers whispered about her strength. Her closest friends said she was too forgiving. But Emma didn't see it that way. Forgiveness to her wasn't weakness, it was freedom. Lily called a few days later. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Emma, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Emma replied calmly. "I hope you make him happy. Just be honest with yourself. Don't waste what you've been given." Lily started crying softly, apologizing again and again. But Emma didn't hold anger anymore. She wished her well, truly. When she hung up, she felt a quiet closure. Emma decided to move into a smaller apartment near the ocean. It wasn't fancy, but it had large windows that let the light pour in, and she could hear the sound of waves at night. The first few weeks alone were strange, too quiet at times, too empty. But slowly, she began to rediscover herself. She started painting again, something she hadn't done since college. She joined a small local book club and began walking by the shore every morning. Each day felt like learning how to live again, one small piece at a time. She missed Mark sometimes, not the man he had become, but the person he once was to her. And she even missed Lily occasionally, remembering their old friendship before things became complicated. But Emma didn't dwell on what was lost. Instead, she focused on what was left: peace, time, and a chance to start again. One afternoon, as she sat by the window painting the sunset, she saw a couple walking hand in hand along the beach. They laughed together, carefree and young. Instead of sadness, Emma felt warmth in her heart. She realized she didn't envy them. She simply hoped they would cherish what she once had. Months passed. One day she received a letter in the mail from Mark. Inside was a simple note. "Emma, I wanted you to know that Lily and I are together now. I hope you're okay. You were right, love changes, but I'll always be grateful for what we had. You taught me kindness, even when things got hard." Emma read the letter twice, smiled softly, and tucked it into her journal. She didn't feel pain, just a quiet acceptance. Maybe this was how life worked. Some people are meant to stay, others are meant to teach us how to let go. That evening, she walked down to the beach, her feet sinking into the cool sand. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink. As the waves touched her toes, she whispered to herself, "I'm okay." And she truly was. She thought about all the women who might go through what she did. Women who would lose love, friendship, and still find strength to stand. She wished she could tell them that endings don't have to be ugly. Sometimes they're just quiet, gentle shifts that lead us where we're meant to be. Weeks later, Emma hosted a small art show in a local gallery. Her paintings were simple sunsets, oceans, and paths leading into soft light. When people asked about her inspiration, She said, "Life changes. You can fight it or paint it." Her words made people smile, but only she knew how much truth they carried. One night, while closing up her little apartment, she stood by the balcony and watched the city lights flicker. She thought of her old home, of Mark's laughter, of Lily's friendship, and realized she didn't regret any of it. Every chapter had led her here to herself. A few months later, she met someone new, a kind man named Daniel who ran a local bookstore. Their connection wasn't rushed or intense. It was gentle, built on calm conversations and shared smiles. He didn't try to fill the spaces in her heart, he just sat beside them. Quietly, Emma didn't know where it would lead, and for once, she didn't need to know. She had learned that love wasn't always about forever. Sometimes it was about healing, growing, and learning to trust again. As she walked home that evening with Daniel by her side, she looked up at the stars and smiled. Not because life had become perfect, but because she had finally found peace within the imperfections. Love had left her once, but it had also taught her to return to herself. And now she was ready to start a new story, one not built on loss, but on strength, forgiveness, and the quiet beauty of beginning again. End of part 3. Letting go gracefully.